While earning his master's degree at Stanford in 1966 and 67, he and 3 other Chicano students pressed the Dean of Admissions for greater recruitment and admissions of Mexican Americans. When Sotomayor graduated and left to begin his career, the other 3 Chicanos continued their activism for a greater Chicano presence in the student body. In 2011, Sotomayor was inducted into the Stanford Multicultural Hall of Fame for El Centro Chicano y Latino. And I'm really proud that we did that. So, Sotomayor received his BA in journalism from the University of Arizona, Tucson, and after a long newspaper career, he was inducted into the UA School of Journalism Hall of Fame. In 1985-86, he studied at Harvard as an Eman Fellow. Sotomayor was a co-founder of 3 organizations dedicated to increasing diversity in the news media. He lives in Tucson with his wife, Barbara, a researcher for the book. Brilliant. He was a Los Angeles Times editor for 35 years and co-editor and writer of the 1983 Times series, Latinos in Southern California. The 27-part series, considered a landmark in diversity storytelling, won the 1984 Pulitzer Prize for Public Service. His online book, The Pulitzer Long Shot, chronicles the backstory of the Latino series. In 1974, he authored Para los Niños, for the Children, Improving Education for Mexican Americans. And most recently, and what he's going to share with us today, and that we're so super proud to be a part of, is the writing of The Dawning of Diversity, How Chicanos Help Change Stanford University. Frank Sotomayor.
Well, it's so wonderful to be here. It is so amazing to see all of you here. Muchísimas gracias. Elvira, Margaret, Jacob from the staff here, and with the assistance of Gina Hernandez, thank you for setting up and making this event possible. To Jose Perales and Ana Rivera. We had a little ad hoc organizing committee of 7 people, and we worked on this panel, kind of brought it to life from scratch. And I'm very happy that we're able to produce it for you today. So Jose and Ana, thank you. And thank you to our músico, Pete Morales. And also, as you will see, the videotaping and photography by Jose Perales Jr. Thank you, all of you. Todos los Perales. Gracias.
Éramos 7.
I feel this is a celebration for everyone who's here.
Sí.
I hope there are some Stanford students here. Do we have any Stanford students? Thank you. You are the lifeblood that keep us going. And for all the alums, family, and other friends, thank you for being here. And again, it is your celebration. Now, I call in my book, which you will see here, kind of subtly placed there for anyone that would like to place an order. I call this the Trailblazer class. Why? Because for 75 years at Stanford, there had been non-diversity. Even to 1965, it was probably just a handful of Latino, Black, Asian, and Native American students. In fact, when I was here one year, 66, 67, we counted surnames in the student directory because the university said they didn't keep such records. We came up with about 36 students, Spanish surname. We didn't distinguish whether they were from the U.S. or Mexico or South America or wherever. So we figured out, and again, correct my math, 1/3 of 1%. 1/3 of 1% of the student body was Mexican American Latino. And I use the term Mexican American and Chicano and Latino because those were the terms appropriate at that time. So those of you that like other terms, go at it. I'm very happy that you are changing as the times change. But for me, I'm an old-timer, old school, and I'm going to say what was appropriate at the time, which was Chicano, Mexican American, and Latino was somewhat used, but came to be used a little bit later.
Pero somos uno.
Somos uno, yeah. We're together. We're together. I said there was non-diversity for 75 years. As some of you know, and some of you may not know, the first president of this university, David Starr Jordan, was a believer, an advocate, and one of the West Coast leading voices for eugenics. So this is where we start from. And I do trace that history in my book, which I found very interesting. And of course, people ask me, who was the first Latino student? So thankfully, Advita and Frances Morales, before her, did a lot of research. And they thought it was a person from Los Angeles, Helen, and through this, what was her last name? Okay, anyway, she was a graduate about 1911, somewhere in there. But it turns out, you know, this is one of the incredible things about research. You never know what you're going to find. And I loved doing research, and my wife, Barbara, did an amazing job of researching. Well, Barbara is the one. Barbara, by the way, not by the way, but I want you to know, Barbara was indispensable to this work. Anyway, someone wrote to El Camarillo and says, no, one of my ancestors was the first Latino that I know of. So who would it be? A distant ancestor of Hernan Cortez, of all people. Oh, so I don't know. We don't really mention Hernan Cortez very often here.
Not a real great one.
Especially in this Centro Chicano y Latino. But anyway, that's again where we start from. So why did I write the book? I initially was kind of replying to Ana Rivera and Felix and Maria Gutierrez. I kept saying, Frank, write a book. No, first of all, they said, write an article for the Stanford magazine. The Stanford magazine had written a number of stories about African Americans, and very appropriately so, because they also were the trailblazers here for diversity. But nothing had ever been written about Mexican Americans, Latinos, and how they came to be a large presence, of course, now a large presence in Stanford. So I went to the magazine and I offered to write a story, and they said no. They turned me down. So I was not happy. So I said to myself, okay, I was going to write a 2,000-word article. So I ended up writing an 80,000-word book. Again, why? Why? Because these are stories that needed to be told, needed to be preserved, and we did not want them to wither away. And the more that Barbara got into the researching and to the interviewing, we realized that these are really amazing stories. And Barbara and I were inspired by these folks here, and other folks that came before, even people in class of 72, like Jose Perales, Fred Alvarez, and others. And of course, those that came immediately after were also very much trailblazers in their own way. All right, so that is why I wrote the book. and I think it's a very worthy book. When I went to grammar school, high school, and even college, I never heard about Mexican American history makers in the Southwest or anywhere. So again, I hope that many of you will write your stories. You know, mine is not the end. I hope it's the beginning of a flow of stories. Okay, enough from me. I'm going to introduce our co-moderators today. Happy to introduce, first of all, Jose Peranes. Jose entered Stanford in '68 and is part of the class of '72. And he was one of the early founders and presidents of MECHA. He went to the historic Santa Barbara conference, Conferencia for Chicano Studies. And after Stanford, he went to law school at John Kennedy Law School and worked in the community college system of California in a number of colleges, and ended up in a very important job of vice chancellor for human resources for the California community colleges. So thank you, Jose, for all you've done, and thank you for being here as a co-moderator. I'm happy to introduce another co-moderator, a fellow Tucsonan, Anna. Now, Anna came to Stanford as Anna Fisher. And days after she graduated from here, she was no longer just Anna Fisher. She was Ana Rivera. Married to this guy here, Armando Rivera. So it does happen that even beyond all the book learning, all the learning we learn from each other, some of you folks, including Hilda, found their spouses here at Stanford. And we're happy to recognize them. What is it, like a great-great-grandson now? Wait a minute, I apologize. Joaquin, okay. All right. So Ana Fisher Rivera grew up in Tucson from a family of educators. Mom and dad were both educators. Her dad was a mail carrier after serving in the Korean War, and he got enough money to go through the University of Arizona, mostly at night, and earned a degree to become a teacher, later a principal. So following those footsteps, Ana came here. Of course, when she first arrived here, she was greeted by the Stanford band and the Dollies, you know, at San Francisco Airport. And she said, "Oh my God, right? Yeah, they do this for everybody?" Well, it turns out that one of her former boyfriends, sorry, Armando, one of her former boyfriends, is he here? Hey! David Reese was the lead trumpet player for the band, and he set up the welcome for Ana.
Do that for everybody.
Okay. So you can see the bond that was built. The bond that was built for 3 years. So, okay. All right. So Ana graduated. Ana graduated here, got married, moved back to Tucson, and finished her doctorate at the University of Arizona. Well, Armando went to law school at the University of Arizona, and they went on to successful careers in Tucson. Ana was a teacher, principal, and administrator also for the Tucson School District. So we're very happy to have these wonderful co-moderators today, and I'll pass it over to you. Okay?
Thank you for having me.
have a panel of 4, and I'm not, they have awesome resumes, awesome background, awesome accomplishments, not just here, but also out there in the real world. But we're going to ask them to tell their story. They're each going to have a 5-minute period to tell us their story. And I want to say, they're the 4 people that are here, and not to take anything away from them, there are many of you that could be here.
Yes.
So many stories. So please get the book. They're all in there. And but we're very honored to have them here. So we have Raimundo Espinosa. We're going to start with him. Then we got Dolores Reveles, and we got David Stevens, and Hilda Cantu Montoya. Montoya. My apologies. They really are all really close to me and to many of you. So we're going to do that, and then we're also going to show you, before they start, we're going to show you a short video that was put together by myself, my son, and my brother. And we did this especially for the class of '73. I hope the audio is good. It actually tells the story, but in a funny way. So, Chicano style. So we'll do that, and then we'll get into the panel. I would like to give Ana a chance to say something.
And I'm so glad that you're all here, actually, and delighted. But we would like those who did enter in the fall of 1969 to please stand up. Please stand up. And there's about 18 of them, of the 70 that did graduate that year. But we just are really pleased and delighted that you're here to join us.
Yes.
We're going to start here and go that way. So, Raimundo, we have about 5 minutes to tell us.
That's it?
And we got the 1 minute warning, and we have a couple of bouncers too. Raimundo, we'd like to hear, your story, and then and we're gonna just go in that direction.
So first,
Yeah.
stand. Okay, leave. No. So I agreed that I was talking to Dolores. I said many of us have stories here, and I'm happy that I'm able to share mine. But there's a lot of different stories and a lot of different struggles, and we all came together, which is really great. So my story, I'm the son of a farm worker, but by the time I came around, I'm like the next to the last child. My dad was upgraded. He worked in a packing shed. And he came over in 1910 as a baby because my grandfather was shot, accidentally shot. He was eating, and a stray bullet hit him, and so that made the trek through Douglas, Arizona. Douglas, Arizona, up into eventually Coachella. I was raised there. I was born in Loma Linda, and there was a hospital and sanitarium. So there you go. I was also premature, okay? So let's figure it out. No. So I was the first one from my family to go to college, of course. I didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to go. My dad kept telling me I needed to go. But there was 2 people that helped me. They were both Barnes. One was my teacher. She was an 8th grade teacher, and it took a village. Okay, it took a village because during the junior high we have the junior high dances, and then right next door were the projects. So we'd stay there till 10 and party till 2. Out on the streets, right? So one barn, she pulled me in, and I guess she saw something. She goes, you know what? You ought to run for a student body president. Ah, no, I don't. I'll write your speech. I know. I said, oh, okay, I'll do it. And I won, That was even better, The other one was my tia. She was from Buffalo, New York. Fell in love with the desert because of all the snow in Buffalo. Married my tio, who was a laborer. But she worked for Stebbing Citrus at that time. And her boss was a West Point graduate. And she wanted me to get into West Point. So she put all the stuff together. I didn't know. She just putting this dossier together, all the stuff. And eventually, long story short, I got accepted. I was nominated for Annapolis. But my eyes failed me. In the meantime, during that period of time, my coach came to me, one of my coaches, and said, hey, go to the office because there's a recruiter from Stanford and fill out an application. So I did, I did that. And I didn't think anything of it, right? So I was already rejected from going to Annapolis. And then I got a call from Luis Nogales. He said, hey, man, you've been accepted to Stanford. I said, oh, okay. Great. I said, money. Yeah, there's some money. I said, okay. So then everybody's excited at school, right? I said, why is everybody excited, So I talked to my dad, and I go, Dad, you got to give me a coat, man, because it snows at Stanford. back east. Back east. I'm frío, man. But anyway, so then I found out it was in California. So I said, But then I told this story last night. So I get the acceptance letter, and it says Leland Stanford Junior University, and I go, what? I've been accepted to a junior college? Hey, man, I could have gone to college in the desert, meet with my friends, and all that stuff. Now I'm going to Palo Alto, But, so anyway, and then everybody was excited, because I was like the second student in the history of the school that had been accepted to Stanford. Right? And then the first one was a farmer's son. And when I came here, I saw him. He was all hippied out, man. I was like, I saw him on University Avenue, selling books. Oh, man. And so anyway, but when I got here, my time's up. Okay. When I got here, I was totally in shock. At that time, there was no 101. It was Monterey Road. We passed through Gilroy, right down that main street. Yep. Got here and I said, what the heck did I get myself into, man? Because I saw no brown faces, man. I just, I came from 85% Latinos. So anyway.
My name's Dolores Reveles, and I was born and raised in Oakland. I still live in the Bay Area, San Leandro. As I said last night, best weather in the whole nation. And I'm not leaving. Anyway, so I came in 1969, but if you recall 1968, there was a lot of things going on in the nation. Martin Luther King was shot. Bobby Kennedy was shot. I grew up with the Black Panthers, the Symbionese Liberation Army, SLA. They had just killed our superintendent of schools then. A lot of things were going on. Turmoil. And drugs. A lot of drugs were happening at that time. I think, 1/3 of the high school was totally wasted, in the classroom, so Reds, I think that was the big thing. I knew in 9th grade that I wanted to go to college, not sure at Stanford, because I never heard of Stanford. Anyway, and my counselor told me that, no, go into the trades, that's what that's what you guys are good for. But in 68, like I said, turmoil, we advocated at my high school, at my last year there, for Chicano studies. We had a white teacher teaching Chicano studies. I did a report on Cesar Chavez. The next period, I was sent to the vice principal's office and reported as a communist. Now that was Chicano studies. Okay, never before ever was I referred to the vice principal's office. Anyway, so in '68, there was a group called the Educational Guidance Center. They were from Berkeley, and so they pulled me out, and a couple of us, and said, we want to help you apply for colleges. And so where do you want to go? Well, San Francisco State, San Jose State. Yeah, I wanted to go local.
Cal.
Not Cal. I didn't want Cal. UC Davis. But anyway, so they said, hey, why don't you apply for Stanford? Okay. Applied and got accepted to all these different colleges. But Stanford gave me a full scholarship. So my brother, who was going to San Jose State, said, you don't want to go there. There's nothing but, rich white people. So I said, okay, I'm not going there. So my father was sick during that period of time. My mother said, you don't need to go to college. Just be a secretary, get married, have kids. That's what you should do. My father, when I went to visit him in the hospital, said, I was telling him that I got accepted to all these places. So then I told him that I got accepted to Stanford, and they were giving me a full scholarship. So he said, I want you to go there. I said, why do you want me to go there? There's not but rich white students there, And he said, well, they're giving you something I could never give you. So I want you to go there. So I accepted. And as I was saying yesterday, my first week here at Stanford, I was ready to go home. I said, forget this place. I'm not, I can't relate. I was at Lagunitas. If you've ever been there, they serve you breakfast, lunch, and dinner with, 4 forks and, and all these things. And they served, the guy would come around and ask what you wanted to drink. So I just said, no way I could do this. So Luis Nogales came and talked to me, and then he invited me to a dinner, and that's where I met 10 other Chicanos. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. So Linda Lopez, who has passed away, said, because I said, I can't stay in my dorm. I cannot. I just can't relate. There was only one other Chicana, and Rick Perez, he came after me the next quarter. Okay. He was there. So Linda Lopez said, well, come stay with me. So I stayed at her dorm, slept on the floor, or slept in the lounge, and would go home, to my dorm room, change, and then move on. So that's how uncomfortable I was. So anyway, my activism, I think we could talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so that's how I got here, and that's my story. And by the way, yesterday, there were so many people I talked to that had so many interesting stories. Roberto Trujillo is collecting all this, all the information of Latino students. So if you have a story, write it down and send it to him.
Stanford Special Collection.
Yeah, Stanford. Yeah.
Thank you. So, how do you follow this?
You will.
Well, I'm so proud to be here with these troublemakers. And they are troublemakers, but it's good trouble.
Your name?
My name is David Stevens, and I'm from Segundo Barrio in El Paso, Texas.
Oh.
And I have a similar story. I grew up 6 blocks from the border with Juarez, Mexico. Segundo Barrio is surrounded on 3 sides by Mexico. It's a very, very unique place in the U.S. And it's the home of the Pachuco, the Tirilones, and I grew up with these people. And, I mingled with them daily when I was growing up. So I learned all that culture. And it was a segregated neighborhood, as evidenced by the fact that when I came to Stanford and sat in my first classroom, it was the first time I had sat in a classroom with a white student in my life. So we were 100% segregated, and one day the dean of students came, and I was a top student at the school. I had A's for 4 years, and I get to my senior year, and it's the first time the dean of students had ever talked to me. So they did not expect us to go to college. We had 240 people in our graduating class. 10 of us went to college that year, and most of them were the girls. The boys ended up in Vietnam. And then all the females would go across the street to work at the Fara manufacturing plant. And that was the barrio. So they didn't expect us to go. So I had applied to UT El Paso, and no other school, because I didn't know you could actually apply to schools wherever you wanted. And so one day the dean comes, he calls me, first time I've ever met him. He says, "Do you want to apply to Stanford?" I said, "Sure, where is it?" like Dolores, I'd never heard of it. I didn't know anything about it. And I said, "Yeah, sure." So he arranged the meeting. Robert Anchondo came. He was from El Paso, and he was a law student here, and he came on a recruiting trip to El Paso. And I have to give him credit because he could have easily skipped the barrio school. We were, Segundo Barrio was, at that time, the lowest income zip code in the U.S. I think it's still in the top 10 of the lowest income zip codes. So we were poor. We went to school with poor kids, and they didn't expect anything of us. So I give him credit because he went to to Bowie High School, my school, to recruit. And he could have easily skipped because there were all these other high schools in El Paso he could have gone to. So he came, and the rest is history. I applied, I was accepted. Yesterday, Al Milo asked us at the book signing event, what was your experience when you got here? And most people talked about their social experience, and I have some of those stories too, but what came to my mind was my first day in class at the university. Now, I had been told that when you go to university, when you're a freshman, most of your classes are going to be like 200 people in a big auditorium, lecture hall. And I get to my first class, and it's a seminar. 10 students, a professor, and the professor asked us to go around and introduce ourselves. So I find out one of the students introduces himself as the son of the Brazilian ambassador to the U.S.
Hispanic.
He was a Latino. And one of the females introduces herself as the daughter of a high-ranking UN official, and she was from Europe. So suddenly I realized, I'm not in Kansas anymore. This was serious, and these people were talking with a professor about some high-level concepts that I had never encountered. So I knew I had to get myself prepared. And fortunately, I had read a lot before I came to Stanford, so we'll talk a little more about how to prepare for university. So, thank you.
Buenas tardes, ya verdad, ya sabe. I'm Hilda Cantu Montoy from San Antonio, and I'm proud to say that I am the product of affirmative action. Yeah! And it's not because I did not have the credentials.
That's right. Yeah.
We all here have the credentials, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in a minute. But I was born in San Antonio. Both my parents were from the San Antonio area. but neither one of them went to high school or even junior high. They were fifth grade students, and I grew up speaking Spanish at home. But my parents, for some reason, they always wanted us to be educated. For them, education was graduating from high school, though.
Yeah.
And so they said, para que tengas un buen trabajo, tienes que graduarte de la high school. And so that was how I started. But I was always a little competitive. I don't know if you know that. But and so I was always doing really well in school, and I was wanted to be the #1 student in every grade, in every class. And then in sixth grade, it was the first time that I even heard the word college. My sixth grade teacher said, got a group of us and said, if you do well in your classes, and you can get something called a scholarship, and you can go to a college. And she explained the whole concept of scholarships in college. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. And so that was my motivation to continue to do well. And I did. I went to junior high, which was in a very high-risk area where there would be paddy wagons outside because there were so many fights and stabbings. There was a murder in my 8th grade class. And so there were a lot of struggles. But I decided that instead of going to the high school that was closest to me, that I would go to another high school and I would take 2 buses, city buses, to get there. But I knew that it was a more challenging class. And so I'm so glad I did that because I was able to get recruited by Robert Anchondo. Like some of these other folks here, I did extremely well, but nobody ever told me that there were other colleges besides St. Cornett Word and Our Lady of the Lake College, which were local colleges. And so I did get called in. Robert Anchondo told us there were only like 4 of us. And he told us all about Stanford. And I said, hey, I want to go there. And so he gave us a packet, the application packet. And that night I sat down at the dinner table and I started working on my application. And my mom said, ¿Qué estás haciendo? And I told her, and she said, no te vas a ir. And then my sister said, Mom, es una aplicación, it's just an application, don't worry about it. And my sister goes, yeah, pero ya sabes quién es. She's gonna go. And so, fast forward, I did get that wonderful call from Luis Nogales, who's so special in many of our hearts. Luis Nogales called me and told me I had been accepted, and I was so excited and so happy. By then I was working nights. I would work after school from 6 to 10 p.m. every night. At the phone company.
Phone company.
And so he called me, I had to take the bus home from downtown, and I got the call and I was so excited. And it was so nice that a lot of because when you applied to those jobs, you had to tell them you weren't going to go to college. And so they gave me that job, but then everybody was very happy for me. Unfortunately, some of the people that were not happy for me were some of the high school teachers that I thought loved me, right?
Yes.
They were always so nice and everything, but when I got accepted, one of them came up to me and said, "You're not going to make it there.
Whoa.
It's just too hard for you."
Whoa.
And so that gave me more motivation, more
Wow.
drive. So that's how I got to Stanford. My dad, at the time, they had to sign different things. The parents had to sign different forms, and my dad said he wasn't going to sign something, pero las mujeres came through. My 2 tias, who were actually his sisters, were talking to my mom, and they said, you don't have to, you can sign. He doesn't have to be the one to sign. So my mom signed all my papers, but then my dad started coming around, and he did mention when he saw the letter, he goes, "This is a junior university."
Explain that.
You're on time.
Okay, so anyway, like they said, there's a lot of things we became active in when we got here, but that's how it started.
Yeah.
Okay, those are awesome stories. So amazing, each and every one of them. Now we're going to go a little deeper with each of you on a significant decision or contribution you made early in your Stanford days. You can talk about the activism, but we're going to start with something specific that we know that you worked on. Okay. So first question.
And the first one is for David. If you could talk a little about your leadership in advocating and negotiating for the Chicano theme dorm, Casa Zapata.
Oh.
We'll do this sitting down. So let me give you some context for this. When we arrived on campus, 70 of us, we were spread out throughout this enormous dormitory system, residence system that's at Stanford. And there would be one student in a dorm, maybe two in another, if we were lucky, three in another. But we were just scattered. And actually, this place here has really deep meaning for me in Centro Chicano, because other than the students I met, Chicano students I met in my dorm, there was like three of us, I met the bulk of the Chicanos here at El Centro. I remember meeting Jose Razo. That was one of the first people I met. And I met everybody here. And so this is a really special place. So I'm so glad that, with all the change that goes on at the university here, that this place has remained a bedrock as a home for Chicanos and as a home for activism here. Anyway, so we were spread out, and it was really difficult to meet other people. So over time, the Chicanos started complaining about being spread out. So Mecha formed a committee in the spring, or actually winter of 1970, a few months after we had gotten here, to negotiate for what they called a Chicano theme house, or what we called, I think we used to call it a Chicano concentration house. Where Chicanos could go and be with other Chicanos. So we started negotiating, and after a while it sort of fell on me, because I remember sitting there negotiating with Larry Horton, who at that time was an assistant dean of residence. I think that's what he was. He went on, a lot of you know him, he went on to higher, bigger things at Stanford. But I sat there, and I remember negotiating with him over and over. And we weren't getting anywhere. We kept insisting, we want a Chicano themed dorm, a Chicano concentration. And they kept saying, well, that's a good idea, but we don't know if it's a good idea, and so forth. So one day I asked him, well, why are you so resistant? What's holding this up? We want it, you need to provide it. And then he came out with it. He said, the university wants Chicanos spread out so that the white students can have more of an opportunity to interact with somebody outside their culture.
Yeah.
And I got really angry. And, I'm a pretty calm person, but I almost lost my temper. And I told him, we're not here for the benefit of white students. We are here for the benefit of us. And we want a Chicano theme house. And after that, things changed. And we started negotiating in good faith. There's a lot of complexity to it, but the result was that because we had a group of students who were very active living in Muir House in Stern Hall, and a group of activist students in Roble Hall, we set up those two places as Chicano theme concentration houses. So in a way, I'm sort of like the grandfather of Casa Zapata. I mean, that happened later, a year or two later, people changed it to Casa Zapata, but at the time it was a Chicano themed dorm in Muir Hall. And that was my part in kind of changing the landscape of Stanford.
Thank you, David.
Whoa, thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm going to surprise David. This is a photo taken in the fall of 1969. David's in it with about 7 other Chicanos who happen to be together. So there's a picture for David here. There's also Ray Espinosa's picture in here and Serra. So anyway, a very historic black and white photograph, and I wanted to give it to him as a gift.
¡Oh! ¡Sí se puede!
Thank you, David. That was really good, really concise, really to the point. Thank you so much. Now we have the Lotus. And Dolores, we'd like you to talk about your leadership in securing funding and organizing the Semana de la Raza, the first one. And maybe you could throw in a little bit about CEPA, Chicanos for Action.
My first quarter, my dad died, so I dropped out during that period of time and came back next quarter. And Felix, he was my rock. Every day I went to his office after class, and a lot of us did. And so anyway, we were talking about the movement, and we talked about Stanford and the Chicanos, and we were all separated at that time. So we came up with the concept and idea of doing a, first of all, just a cultural experience. It was going to be like one day, but then, Felix, well, why not make it a week? Okay. So then we were brainstorming, well, if we're going to, have a whole week, who are we going to have? So we just dreamed, okay, what if we got Corky Gonzalez, What if we got Dolores Huerta, or Cesar Chavez? What if we got Teatro Campesino, Teatro Urbano? All the, then women's component, so it was like, okay, let's do it. So we just sort of planned out how the week would go. Then it was like, okay, now we need to get money. We need to get funding. So Felix was like, hey, we just go to the different departments. They got discretionary funds, so we can go, and this one fits under, social studies, and this one fits under this, and so on. And so Felix helped me and write a proposal. And so, we wrote this proposal together. And then, Felix pushed me in front, and I had to present the proposals to the different departments. And we got funding. And it was amazing. We had, I think, over 1,000 participants from out of Stanford. That was the other thing. It wasn't just getting the students here, involved, but we invited the community. We wanted everybody to know that we were here. So we invited Bay Area, so we had high school students that came in to listen to Jose Angel Gutierrez. That was one of the photos there. Corky Gonzalez came and spoke, Dolores Huerta. Teatro Campesino performed, Teatro Urbano performed. That was Daniel Valdez's group. And it was like amazing. That's all I could say, was amazing. We had mariachis on the White Plaza. Rasso, took down the American flag. Put out the Mexican flag. It was like I said, it was just amazing. And we scheduled it, during when people weren't going to class so much, so people could participate. Actually, it was spring break, wasn't it? Yeah. So anyway, so we got on the map, and actually, we connected with a lot of mechas in the Bay Area, and well, even throughout California. So that was that. It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how to, organize, coordinate, how to present, and not to give up. Just keep pushing. So I really learned a lot from that. CEFA. So when there's two groups, there was CEFA and then there was the Chicana Colectiva. That came later. CEFA sort of sprang up in Mecha in 1969, 1970. But Alice was I'm pretty sure was the chairperson. And Maggie Cisneros was one too I think when we first started.
Well, you were co-chair with me.
Yeah, I co-chaired with you. And that came about because they had the women doing all the secretarial work. Take notes. Could you take notes? And anyway, so then, and Hilda's going to talk about the comedor. We were doing all the cooking, all the cleaning. I mean, it was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So we wanted, we have power too. So we met a lot of the women, and we formed a group called CEFA, Chicanos for Action. And
Felix always had to give it a name.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, we presented to Mecha, and the men had a big problem with that. No, you're dividing us. We're supposed to be united. No. And so, and you're a feminist group. You're like the white feminist group. No. And we just kept pushing, and that's how I got elected co-chair. So anyway, so that's a story about CEFA.
Thank you.
All right.
Now Hilda's going to add to this because she's going to be talking more about the Chicanos for Action and the Comedor and Soledad prison and East Palo Alto. So she's going to just continue with this continuation of our women's role in our supporting our communities.
So just a little bit about El Comedor, because it is an offshoot of shelter, as David spoke, and culture and politics that Dolores spoke of. And El Comedor was something that we all wanted so much because, unlike now, we'd have to go to San Jose or Redwood City. There was a little place called Tony's where we'd go on Middlefield Road to get a taco once in a while. And so we decided to seek funding again, like Dolores did, and we were able to get funding for to be able to have one dinner once a week on Saturday afternoon. And I can't remember the location, but it was one of the big locations. And so every Saturday morning, Gary Cavazos was a grad student, upperclassman from the area, and his parents would come pick me up at the dorm, and we'd go to Sunnyvale to a grocery store called Grisos, and we'd buy all the goods, and then we'd come, and they would primarily make the food, but I've always loved cooking, so I was in there too. And it was just another way besides all the things that these folks have been talking about, that we could get together. Because, what's that saying? Panza llena, corazón contento, right? So that was one thing. But I think for me, the big thing for me was here, starting at college when I got admitted, I started thinking more about injustice, and injustice troubled me. And so then when I got here and I started hearing all about these other things that people were doing, I really felt that I needed to become an advocate. And so I ventured into different things. Soledad Prison Project was one where I went to with another group of students as well to teach prisoners. There was another group I was part of in East Palo Alto, and my daughter ended up teaching there and becoming a principal there in East Palo Alto. We'd go there and teach Saturday classes as well. And then there was also a very interesting group, thinking back now especially. There was a big company in San Carlos, and they asked us if we could send students to teach the workers during their break times. So they would give workers an extra 20 minutes, so they get like 45 minutes every day, not every day, but once a week, and they would come to our classes and we would teach them English. So that was very progressive, right? And so that was another thing. Dolores mentioned Semana de la Raza with Jose Angel Gutierrez, and I had grown up loving history and democracy and government, and then listening to Jose Angel Gutierrez from Texas talk about La Raza Unida, which was a third party that was gaining traction in South Texas, where even though the population may have been 100%, or not 100, but 90% Chicano, the governing officials were never Chicanos. So they started a third party, and it was called La Raza Unida. And Jose Parales and I got very interested in that, and what was it, my sophomore, junior year, we'd go to the different Newark, Union City, and other communities to talk to community groups about voting, about registering to vote, and voting and becoming active, and using this vehicle of a third party as a way to get elected. And so those are the kinds of things I did. And then, the other big one that we all experienced was obviously the Vietnam War. We came here, again, very patriotic, and then learning about the war and how Chicanos were dying disproportionately. And many were going there to Vietnam and returning and getting the worse wages than the non-Chicano folks were getting. I mean, they didn't even go serve, and they were making better wages and with the same education, etc. So I became very anti-war. I had a half-brother that had passed away in the Vietnam War from a high school that had the highest proportion of fatalities of deaths in the whole country in San Antonio. So I became very active in the anti-war movement, and as a result, in the spring of '70 is when Stanford got very active as well, and they decided to send a delegation of students, a cross-section of students and professors and administrators to Washington, D.C. to advocate against the war. And we did. I had one tiny little suitcase. That was my second flight, right? And Perales he didn't even have a suitcase. he put everything in a pillowcase. But we were there, we did our job. It was just a wonderful experience. I think that was, as Dolores said, we learned how to organize, we learned how to advocate, we learned how to do. And again, it's just not the four of us, it's a lot of you out there.
Right.
And the other thing I just want to say, I know it's more than 5 minutes, but during that time, everybody had a different story, was coming from a different place, was going through still a lot of things. I was sending money, I would work and send money home, right? Which was the opposite of what other students were getting. But everybody has a different role, and everybody advocates in a different way. Some of the students that never participated in Mecha, I've read about them, and they've done wonderful things in the community. They become very successful. So don't feel, students, that you have to be one way or the other.
Right.
You use your own voice. Use your own voice. Be your own person. One of the professors in law school that I had, Marty Blake, he had been at CRLA, and he came and taught a class on clinical law, and he me that lesson because he videotaped different things that we were doing in the class in law school, and he presented one videotape of a student who did a really good job, and he took like an hour and a half to cross-examine somebody, right? And everybody said, wow, that's great. And then he showed my video, which I was surprised, because my video was like 10 minutes long. And then he said, be yourselves. This shows that two different people were able to do their job in two very different ways, but they got the job done. And so don't try to, Ilda's more, she's disarming, she's going to speak softly and just kind of get the person to admit all these horrible things. And this other person was more aggressive, and he got his job done too. So again, I just really like to say that to students because every one of you is different, and don't feel like, and if you can't make it to Mecha meetings, that's okay. You can't make it all the time because you might have other commitments. You may have family at home that's ill. You may have people that, you may be needing to send money home at times yourself. So anyway. All right.
Okay. For Raimundo, we're going to ask you to, how did you decide to go into the health and medical administration fields? And you could talk a little bit about the Gardner.
Okay. About Gardner, okay. No, so my desire to work in the health field was as a result of when I was little, at 10 years old, my mom was in a mental institution. And I remember going to Norwalk and going to visit her, and the only way I could see her was behind the bars in the window, my brother and I. And so, as a kid, you remember other things too, right? So my brother and I were all happy because we would go to the fountain right there and get ice cream and stuff. But I remember my mom; she was just looking out that window, and so that was part of it. But then at the same time, during that period of time, my sister became my mom. But she died of toxemia at the age of 20, and so that had an impact on me as well. When I came to Stanford, during my junior year, my sister committed suicide. She was 28, another sister. So those are kind of like the things that prompted me to be. I wanted to be a doctor, but like I came to the conclusion that I'm not disciplined. Because andaba de loco aquí, allí, following them, Yeah, you need some help? Yeah, I'll do it. And like I said last night, I became a political science major only because at the last quarter I hadn't declared, and I had more poli-sci. I had enough poli-sci units to become a poli-sci major, and I found a professor to sign my documents to become a poli on time. I graduated on time. But I had been searching for. I didn't really know. I knew I didn't want to be a doc after all. And I didn't want to be, because I had political science, you can become an attorney. And I didn't want to become an attorney because I thought it was broke. The system was broken, and I was, and I was going, but just faith, So my wife and I got married my junior year, and just by faith, check this out. We ended up going to Guaymas, Mexico, for our honeymoon. And one morning we wake up and we go to this little restaurant in Guaymas, Mexico. And we see no her friend who was in the School of Public Health Hospital Administration program, and he says, "Well, why don't you apply for this?" I said, "What are you doing?" "Yeah, you have to run a hospital." I said, "Oh, okay." So I applied and I got accepted. and so then I graduated in '75, and then took 10 years because I worked for different organizations. My first job out of college, out of my master's, was a hospital administrator, assistant hospital administrator. But the challenge was that it was in a planned community, but which isn't bad all the people I could relate to were right outside the fence, lived outside the fence, and they worked, in the kitchen or in maintenance, and so I would go, "¿Cómo están todos?" You know how I am. So the CEO said, he pulled me aside and said, "Don't do that. Don't speak Spanish to them, okay? Don't be that way." Oh man, I go. And at that time, I had a 41 Chevy, so I parked it in the parking lot.
Don't park here.
Don't drive that.
And I just quit, and I just said, "No, this is not the place for me." And I kept looking, because for me, after being here and being at Berkeley, it was about changing, and like I like to talk about, changing human condition, making it better for people. And so then from there, I worked for public agencies. The last job I had was working for a for-profit that grew from 3 hospitals to 30 in 3 years. And during that time period, I met this person named David Correa, and he was a board member for the organization I worked for, and he was the director of Gardner Clinic. It was a small clinic. And he was leaving, and he said he kept in touch. He said, "Hey, why don't you apply for this job?" And I said, "Oh, okay." So, all right, I'll do it. And then so I applied, and at that time my kids were tired of moving. I think they had moved every year, and they asked me for a 2-year commitment. And they were like 9 and 11. They were 9 and 11. Dad, give me a 2-year commitment. Come on. I said, "Okay." I was like, I'll do it. No. So I got to this place, and it was like small. It was like our budget was like $2.5 million. Oh man, it was interesting because community based. It had been on probation, and we were like poor, like our clients, right? Like our patients. We were just like pobrecitos. And so I had and people still remember it, because there's some people that are still there that we would tell our funding sources, don't mail the check. We'll pick it up because we got to meet payroll. And pobrecito, the employees would run to the bank, man, and check before it was bound. And then it was interesting, because it was like people hadn't billed, and then there was pleitos entre the billers, because they were from different countries that had pleitos back home, and they wouldn't talk to each other. So I had to kind of like get everybody to organize together, and I said, "You're not canceling clinics no more." And finally, a story, things happen, right? So, person that played at our wedding, his name was Gilbert Servin. He was in the band, so he played. But he came when I saw him in San Jose at that time. He says he was a consultant, right? And he goes, "Hey, Raimundo, man, why don't you buy your building?" And I said, "No, man, that might be a good idea, because if I can control my costs, maybe I can make it better, right?" And he says, "Yeah, because all the hospitals are taking advantage of this quote unquote tax exempt bond financing process." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, okay. So you write the proposal, but you got to get $180,000. I said, "Okay." We didn't have any money, right? And so finally, there was this program from the city, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Funding, and it was to eliminate blight, right? We're in because our philosophy was to build in the barrio so that people would walk to the places, right? So I went to the city, and the city goes, "Nah, you shouldn't apply because we don't fund healthcare." And I said, "Oh man, but we're blighted, come on." So I did. I applied, and I got 100,000, and so I still needed 80,000. I said, what am I going to do, man? How am I going to get this money? So I said, also, I have a habit of waking up in the middle of the night. What am I going to do? So I said, you know what? I'm going to ask the owner to donate it. And I remember he lived in Aptos, and we were in San Jose, and we met at the top of the hill. So I said, "Come on, donate it, come on." And he goes, and I go, "Yeah, because you'll get 1.3 million. So donate it. He said, that's a finder's fee. I know, I found you. That's so that started the whole process, right? And so Viso, so then I was there and I left and I worked for this other place called Viso, which was the first federally funded health center in the state of California in 1968, and that was developed because when this was the Valley of Heart's Delight, migrant workers would go to Alviso and the population would double in the summer, and they had no access to health care. 2 years later, Gardner also, because of the cannery workers, the service workers, organized in the Gardner community. In 1987, we brought them together to make one, but so we grew over time from a $2.5 million corporation to a $93 million corporation. With 8 sites, and we own 6 of them, and 5 are debt free.
Wow.
And the most important thing is that we provide a lot of service. 46,000 people. We provide medical, dental, optometry, pharmacies, healthcare services to the homeless, a big behavioral health program. So that's the value. That's the value. It's not about, like I said, it's not about the size. It's about what you do. And what I'm really proud of, I think, is in terms of the culture, is that because the people that we serve, it's a family of 4 making $45,000 a year. That's like 90% of our people. Wow. You know, and the thing that I love is that they'll help you. That's the main thing. And I said, as long as you keep helping people, people will come back.
Right.
As long as you keep helping, they'll come back, and that's how I think we've grown. And so, but the impetus for me wanting to be in the healthcare field was that to create to change the human condition. Okay.
So.
They were working as cooks, they were working as service workers, they were working as gardeners. They were here, but they were, and I remember in the dorms, I would always talk to some of the food service workers were Chicanos, and I would talk to them. For the white students, they were invisible. I mean, they didn't exist. They didn't mistreat them, but it's like they weren't of consequence. And so one of the things I did was, I didn't like how the administration treated them. They treated us royally. I mean, even the Chicanos, we got treated well. But workers got treated poorly. So I went to work with a union here and worked to organize. So I worked as a, field work as a business agent. I worked as an organizer at Stanford for 12 years. I became union president, and I was just, I did everything in the union field you can do. And one of the things I wanted to add was, I was one of the founding members of Dr. Loco's Rocking Jalapeno Band. And a lot of people don't know it, but that band started here at Stanford. And, part of that, we have Carlos Camplis, who's somewhere back here.
Back there somewhere.
There he is. And, yeah, he was the original timbalero for the band. And, Gina's husband, Chris Gonzalez Clark, was the guitar player. And I played with the band for 14 years. And, one of my joys was playing at the Zoot Suit Week dance at Casa Zapata, because it brought me home. And we did that for a number of years, and I got through that experience, we got to play for generations after us of Chicano students and got to know them. And also got to know Jose Antonio Burciaga and Cecilia, but Jose was, he was from El Paso, so we had a connection. And so I just wanted to say that, this place holds a lot of meaning for me in terms of things I've done. And just sort of to wrap it up, I'm a special education teacher. I teach students with learning disabilities at Ida B. Wells Continuation High School in San Francisco. Been teaching for almost 30 years. And after I left Stanford, I got my teaching credential, master's, and doctorate at the University of San Francisco. So I'm all tied up with this area, and I'm just really happy to be here with these folks. Can you imagine their energy when they were 18? It was amazing. And, Hilda was one of the fiercest advocates for women's rights back when we didn't really get it. And I really feel sorry about that, and I apologize. The guys, we didn't get it. We were supported, but we didn't get it. So Hilda taught us a lot.
Come on now.
And these two, one of my joyous memories from when we were freshmen is watching them dance with abandon and joy to Slang the Family Stone.
Hi everyone, my name is Jane Hernandez. Proud Chicana, proud Machista, current senior at Stanford. First of all, congratulations for making it out of Coachella Valley. It's a little inside joke we have here at Stanford, Coachella Valley people. But I know, maybe to Gina and Vida, I already sound like a broken record, but I just want to thank you on behalf of all the students here, because without any of you, doesn't matter if you graduated last year, students like me could have not been here. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart for paving the way. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists, to Ana and Jose for a wonderful program. I'm sure they could have gone hours and hours, and I think Raimundo would still make us laugh. Okay, there's so much that could be said. Let me see if I can make a few wrap-up comments. One of the things at the beginning, and I want to pay tribute at this event to some of the early people who were here and made possible the entering class of 69, which became the graduating class of 73. We have to start with Luis Juárez.
Yes.
Luis Juárez was born along the Highway 99 near Madera. They were farm workers, family was farm workers, and never traveled to another camp when he was born. His grandmom brought him to life. Anyway, from this background, he came to Stanford as a law student, and he was a leader. He was a leader of the Chicano movement, which was just starting here at Stanford. And he was the one really that I worked with, and Robert Anchondo and Frank Ponce worked for a year. Now, I moved on. I had my degree, I had a job, so I moved on. But it was Luis and Frank Ponce and Robert Anchondo who kind of took over from there in the year 67, 68 that made the incoming class of 69 possible. So I want to remember that. And from the first administrators at the group, we again need to pay tribute to Felix and Maria Gutierrez. They were fantastic. One of the things that Luis really believed in, and I think one of the reasons that he chose a class like this of people that were interested in doing things for the community, in making a difference, was this. They were not looking for people that were saying, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Yes. They were looking for people that were saying, what's in it for us? Yes. For the Chicano community, the Latino community, for the general community, for everybody. And I do talk in the book here, wrote about some of the things that they moved on beyond these folks. And you can see that they went into what I would call helping careers, doctors, lawyers, teachers, and so forth. So that was the whole idea. So it wasn't just to get a degree. It was to make it more of a general change in society. So I remember a few years ago, and I was lucky to be inducted into the Hall of Fame here. It was a great honor for me in 2012, but I didn't come to any reunions for a while. So I came back in 2018, and someone told me something that just kind of knocked me down and brought tears to my eyes. He said, "We now have more than 10,000 Latino graduates in Stanford University."
Wow.
I had absolutely no idea. And when I heard that, I was just kind of silent and kind of cried tears of joy for that. So on that note, as I said, this is a celebration for these folks. This is also a celebration for you. So enjoy, remember, but also give back. Also give back, okay? The undergraduate enrollment here at Stanford of undergraduates is pretty good. It's around 18% right now. It's pretty good, but that has to continue to rise as the Latino population rises. The thing that is a disgrace is that it drops down to 8% graduate students. And even beyond that, only 4%, only 4 of every 100 faculty here are Latino and Latinas. So when I say Latino, definitely, of course, mean Latino and Latinas. So this is something that you in your small groups can think about. What can you do? I tell you that letters are extremely effective. Extremely effective. You think, oh no, they're not going to pay attention to that. Stanford's in the transition right now with a new president going to be coming in. So this is a very appropriate time to write to the president. The provost is Jenny Martinez. Another just coincidence. Her father was a visiting lecturer here in sociology when these folks were right here. And he was a person that basically got rid of a frito bandido in the bandit that would be in the advertisements for Frito-Lay. So anyway, okay, so my final message is enjoy, but remember the students that are here now and the students that continue to come here. It's just not for a selfish reason for us Latinos. It's to make our country better. You know, when we have Javier Becerra in the national government, when we have the two Castro brothers, when we have Ellen Ochoa as an astronaut and head of a NASA Johnson Center, these are big-time players, and there's so many others, and we need to continue that. People that understand our community. Thank you very much for everybody for being here.
We want to thank Frank for his comments, for his book, for his great contribution to our history. It'll be there forever. And we appreciate everybody. It's such a big crowd. We weren't sure because it was Saturday morning, right? So, thank you for making it. And then our panel, just such an amazing. Can we give them a hand? We're going to end with a short. Chicano class.